Hey everyone, I'm Jamel Balante. Today we're diving into this UML diagram that outlines a robot assembly system. Let's walk through it step by step so you can see how all the parts come together to build a functioning robot. This is where everything starts, the robot assembly line. Think of it like a robot factory. It has a method called buildRobot, which take a bunch of inputs like the robot's name, eye color, power source, strength level, and even the weapon type. These details are used to build a custom robot. Once built, the robot is called. It creates a robot object. This class represents the final product, your full robot, made up 6 key parts: a head, torso, arms, legs, a weapon, plus some basic identity info like its name and model number.
Okay, so before we proceed to Mr. Velante's presentation, my name is Angelo Randy Villanueva. I would just like to emphasize the presence of our getter methods under the robot class, which entails the get arms, get head, get legs, and get weapon. So these methods will be essential for us to access each parts and then implement or do the actions for each parts. So these actions are for the head, the scan area, for the legs, the move method, and then for the arms is arms and weapons, which will be essential for the combat or attack methods. So moving on.
Each of those parts, head, torso, arms, legs, and weapon, is represented by its own class, and all of them inherit from a common abstract class called parts. That's important because it guarantees that every part can be activated. Here's the trick: parts is an abstract class. That means it defines a contract, in this case, an activate method which every part has to implement in its own way. This ensures the robot's components can be powered up and ready for action. For example, the head has an eye color and a sensor type, and it can scan areas. The arms store a strength level it can be activated. The torso holds the power source. The legs are responsible for movement, and the weapon defines how robot attacks, with both a type and a power level. Once all parts are created, they're passed into robot object using the assemble method. Now, the robot is completely and ready to act. The robot can then power up, activating all its parts, and move using its legs, and combat, engaging its weapon system. And if you ever need to access the finished robot, just call get robot on the assembly line. And boom, your custom built machine is ready to go. So that's how this robot assembly system works. Step by step, it's a clean modular design that makes it easy to build and control intelligent robots from usable parts. Thank you.
Hello everyone and greetings and welcome to our in-depth presentation on the robot assembly system. So I'm Mark Justin Alcantara and I'll kick things off by diving straight into the foundation piece of our code, the parts abstract base class. So we'll go line by line, unpacking not only what each bit of codes does, but why it's structured that this way. Then before we jump into the code, so let's set the stage. In the system, we simulate a futuristic factory that assembles robots from 5 essential components: head, torso, arms, legs, and weapon, showcasing composition in object-oriented programming. So each piece has its own attributes and behaviors, yet they all share one common contract. They must be able to activate themselves. So this is perfect use case for an abstract base class in Java. So which brings us to our first file, the parts.java. So here's the code. Here's the entire parts.java file. It's compact, just 5 lines, but it sets the contract for every robot part. So let's unpack it. So here, we declare an abstract class named parts. So why did we declare this? So we want to enforce that every specific part, head, torso, etc., must share a common behavior, namely an activate method. And without providing a direct implementation here in this file. So by marking the class abstract, Java prevents us from creating a plain new parts instance. So it becomes a like a template only. So think of it like we're making an analogy here, like a recipe card. So obviously we cannot eat a recipe card, but every specific dish we cook follows that recipe's outline. So then we declare a abstract method here, activate, that returns nothing. So we're saying every subclass must provide its own implementation of activate. So this captures polymorphism. So we can call activate on any part's reference and the right behavior will run. So the public here, the public keyword ensures any part can be activated from outside. So abstracts this keyword tells us that the compiler there's nobody here. Then so what happens if we omit this abstract? So if we omit this abstract, you'd need to supply a method body. So if we change also the visibility to protected, for example, parts could be activated by the assembly line outside the package. So which is not the case here because all of this is just in a one package. Then so that's what wraps up my deep dive into the parts base class. So we've seen how this small file sets up the contract. Our golden rule that every component of the robot must have activate. So next up, my groupmate Almin Agaid will take you through the heart of our system, the robot class itself, where composition and polymorphism come together in earnest. Over to you, Boy.
Go. Hello everyone, I'm Almin Agad, and in this segment we're going to discuss the robot Java file, where all of our parts come together under one roof. We'll look at how the class defines its identity, holds references to each component, and uses methods to assemble, power up, and even engage in combat. So at the top, we declare public class robot. This makes the class visible to every other part of our application. Immediately after, we have two private string name and model number. This serves as the robot's unique identity. Below that, we declare 5 private fields, which is head, torso, arms, legs, and weapon. Each field is typed to its respective class so that once we assemble the part, we can store it directly in its slot. Here, we define the constructor. It takes the robot's name and model number as parameters and assigns them to the instance fields. Notice we do not initialize any parts yet. That happens later. This approach ensures that every robot object is created with a clear identity right from the start. The assemble method takes any object that implements parts and prints assembling it, then uses instance of checks to determine the actual subclass. Cast the part, assigns it to the appropriate field, and print a confirmation message. This single method handles all 5 parts types, demonstrating polymorphism, one method, many possible part objects. Next is the power up method. Prints powering up, then checks each part in turn. If the part exists, we call its activate method. Otherwise, we print a warning message. This guarantees that only assembled components receive activation calls. So the next one is combat and movement. So the combat method switches the robot into combat mode, activates the arm, reports their strength, then activates and fire the weapon. After that, the move method prints a message showing movement speed based on the leg's mobility level. Right now, it's a simple print statement, so later we could extend it to animate or calculate actual movement. So the next reporter is Mark Joseph Taduran. Hi everyone, I'm Mark Joseph Taduran, and in this segment we will explore the two of our key components classes, head.java and torso.java. We'll see how each extend the parts based on classes, initialize its own attributes, and implement activation behavior. Let's pull up the code for head.java first. And now, let's examine torso.java. It follows a similar pattern but focuses on power distribution. At the first part, public class torso extend part, like head, torso inherits the abstract construct to implement active and can also add its own behavior or properties. And next, private string power source. This represents the core energy supply for the robot. Example might be fusion core or battery pack. And next, public torso string power source takes a single argument and assign it a field by doing this at construction time. Every torso knows exactly what the power of the robot entire system. And next, let's talk about override. In this body activate, we print robots torso activated plus torso internal system powered up and energy is now distributed. This message indicates that the torso has come online. Its internal circuitry is activated and the power is flowing out to the other part, which the single method calls power up. The torso rides the entire robot for operation. And next reporter is talk about arms.java and legs.java. The reporter is Twisa Clarence Lloyd. Twisa Clarence Lloyd. The file begins with public class. Ito, papakilala pa pala ako. Greetings everyone. I'm Clarence Lloyd Twisa and we discuss the class ARM. The file begins with public class ARM extend parts. This declaration tells Java that ARMS inherits from the abstract parts class and must implement the activate method. Next, we see the private field named strength level. These double the represent how powerful robots' arms are expressed as percentage or relative metric. The construction takes a single parameter, strength level, and assign it to the instance field. This ensures that every ARMS object is created with a defined power level. Current strength level. Other classes, such as robot, will call this method to determine how forcefully the ARMS can operate during combat or heavy-duty tasks. Finally, the activate method is override and print a message indicating that the ARMS are powered up and primed for action. When power up called, this method we confirm that the arm's internal motor and the hydraulics are now engaged. That covers our walkthrough of arms.java. We've seen how the class stores and provides its strength level, and how it signals readiness for combat. Next is Brian Laderas will explore Legs Java, where we will define mobility and enable the robot to move. Greetings and hi everyone, I'm Brian Laderas, and this segment will examine Legs.java. So we'll see how the class defines its mobility capabilities, provides movement, functionality, and implements activation behavior for our robot's legs. And here is the complete Legs.java file. We'll step through each section to understand how it supports the robot's movements. The file begins with the class legs extends to parent class parts. This declaration shows the legs inherits the abstract contract from parts, requiring an implementation of activate method. Next is there is a private field mobility level of type double. This field represents the robot's speed or agility percentage. Then, the contractor accepts a mobility level parameter and assign in the instance field. This ensures every legs object has defined mobility level upon creation. Then the move method. The move method prints a message indicating the robot's current movement speed. This method separates low motion behavior from activation. And next is the getter method. The getter method is public double get mobility level. The get mobility level method returns the mobility level so other class like robot can reference to robot speed when needed. And the override activate method. So finally, the activate method prints a message indicating that the legs has been powered up. When power up calls this method, we can confirm the legs actuators are now engaged. And so far, we now covered Legs.java. So it inheritance, mobility attribute, movement method, accessor, and activation behavior. So the next speaker, Lloyd Tenorio, will guide you through Weapon.java, where we'll explore weapon types, power levels, and attack functionality. So see you in the next segment.
Hello everyone, I'm Lloyd Tenorio, and in this segment, we will examine the Weapon.java class. We'll review how it defines weapon attributes, provide attack functionality, and implements activation behavior. So this is the code. First is the class declaration. This declares the weapon class as a public and indicates that it inherits from the parts abstract class. By extending parts, weapon must implement the activate method and can define its own methods. Next one is the two private fields. These two private fields store the type of weapon and its power level percentage. The weapon type string identifies whether the robot uses a laser, missile, or other types of weapon. Next one is the double power level. Double indicates the weapon's current readiness strength. So how do we instantiate this class? We have the constructor, obviously. The constructor accepts two parameters, the weapon type and the power level. And then after that, it assigns them to the private instance fields. This makes sure that every weapon that is created with its type and power level defined. Next, the attack method. The attack method prints a message indicating the weapon, the type, and its power level percentage. This method simulates the robot executing an attack with its weapon system. So, for example, laser attack. Power level is set to 30%. Last but not the least, the activate method. This method prints a message indicating that the weapon system has come online and is ready. When the robot plus power up method calls the activate method, this message confirms the weapon's internal systems have powered up successfully. Example is weapon system activate and ready for use. Lastly, this completes our detailed exploration of weapon.java. We saw how the class defines its attributes, implements the attack method, and overrides the attack activate. For readiness confirmation, this completes our detailed exploration of weapon.java. We saw how the class defines its attributes, implements the attack method, and overrides activate for readiness confirmation. In the final segment, Angelo Villanueva will present the main.java class, showing how we tie everything together to build and deploy our robots. Over to you.
Alright, so good day. My name is Angelo Ryan de Villanueva, and now I'm going to explain the code under the main.java or the main class. So in this class, first we've created a scanner object to help us gather user inputs. Now next, in this part, we instantiated a robot assembly line with the name new robot, which will help to coordinate to the creation of the robot or building the robot. Now next, in the following lines, this will now cater the collection of specifications to the robot's parts. So it will first start with the robot information, wherein it will ask for the robot's name and then robot's model number. So both will be stored in a string data type, and it will have a variable name corresponding to its purpose. So we have a string name and string model number. Now next, for the robot head specification, it will ask for the robot's eye color and then the robot sensor type. For the eye color and sensor type, they will be both stored as a string data type. Now next, for the robot torso specification, it will ask for the robot's power source. So for the power source, it will be stored as a string data type. Now next, for the robot arms, it will now ask for the robot strength level, which will be stored as a double data type under the name strength level. And same goes with the robot's leg specification. It will ask for the mobility level, which will also be stored as a double data type under the name mobility level. Now lastly, we have the weapon specification. It will ask for the robot's weapon type, and then the weapon type will be stored as a string data type, and then the robot's power level will be stored as a double data type under the name power level. Now in this line of code, new robot.build robot, name, model number, eye color, sensor type, power source, strength level, mobility level, weapon type, and power level. In this part of the code, it will now access the build robot method under the robot assembly line, which will help us to create and then assemble the parts of the robot. So this build robot will be seen under the robot assembly line. So this is the build robot. So in this build robot method, it will create a robot object using the name and then the model number, which are the arguments needed for the robot's constructor. Now next, for the parts, so in this part, it will declare a robot parts variable with uh, the parts as its object type. Now next, in this part, it will now assemble each part of the robot. So since we've used the concept of polymorphism, we've just used the parts as its object type, and then we've used the different new keywords corresponding to each parts that is being assembled. So for example, in the first part, we've made the robot part as a new head, and then now next, after assembling it as the robot's head, we've now um, initialized or created the robot as a new torso object, and then assemble it, and then same goes for the other parts. Now next, after creating the robot, we have this line of code, new robot that get robot that power up, which will be responsible for uh, getting the robot. So the get robot will help us to get the robot object that we've made. So this is the get robot, and then we'll access the dot power up method, which will be found under the robot class. So under the power up method, it will have a list of if else statements wherein it will check if the robot has that specific part. So that's why we have this if head is not equal to null. So if there's an existing head, the head will be activated using the dot activate method for the head class. So that concept or that line of code will be done also to each part of the robots for the torso, arms, legs, and then the weapon. So after that, we'll be now uh, we'll now be demonstrating in this part for the robot scan area and then the combat and then the move. We will now demonstrate if the robot can scan the area or combat or even move. So to do those part, we've used the get robot for each part, and then for the robot scan area, since the scan area will be done by the head, so we will get the head object, which will be found at the robot class. So this is the get head. And then under the head class, we will access the scan area method, which will be found under the head class. So running that code, it will show a message that the robot is commencing 360 degrees perimeter scan for threats, and it will say that all clear within sensor range. Now next for the combat method, it will access the get. It will get the robot object, and then under the robot object, it will access the combat method. So under the combat method, it will access the activate method under the arms, and then it will show a message that the combat mode is activated, and then same goes with the message that the robot is attacking with the arm strength level by using the get strength level method, and then it will also activate the weapon by using the that activate method, and then it will attack using the weapon using the attack method under the weapon class. So for the robot move, it will get the robot again, and then get the robot's legs object, and then it will access the move method under the legs class. So the move method will be seen at the legs class here, the public void move, and then it will under that method, it will show a message saying that the robot is moving at the speed level of the mobility level that is set at the robot. So all in all, that is the main class that we have for this robot assembly system. Thank you.
So Dangal greetings, my name is Josh Russell R. Pamintuan. So now let's walk through the output of the program. So the system begins by asking the user to enter the robot's name and the model. So let's say the robot name is Titan. And then enter robot model number. For example, is TK9. And then next, the user input is specification for each robot parts such as eye color, sensor type, power source, strength level, mobility level, weapon type, and weapon power level. So let's enter robot eye color. For example, is red. And then robot sensor type is infrared. And then robot torso specification. So enter robot power source. For example, is a battery. And then robot arm. Enter a robot strength level. For example, is level 10. And then robot legs specification. So enter robot mobility. Let's say 50. And then robot weapon specification. Enter robot weapon type. For example, is cannon blast. Enter. So the level is 15. Let's say 15. Enter. So this is the final output. Once all input are gathered, the assembly process begin. Each part is assembly one by one, and the system confirm each successfully attachment. Okay. Thank you.